Thank you, gentlemen, for being here today. We're here because we want to learn a little bit more about your work. So, Dr. Hu, can you tell us a little bit about your research?
Yeah. My research mainly focus on the venous abnormality in the neurological diseases. Yeah, we found many neurological diseases are associated with venous abnormality, particularly the jugular vein, the drainage of the jugular vein.
Why is this important?
Yeah, for 100 years ago, people only focus on the arterial pathology that caused the neurological problem. They forgot the vein. If no flow out, and it should be no flow in. So we think if we found there are many diseases cannot explain by the arterial problem, but it should be a vascular in origin, which I think is probably caused by the venous abnormality.
What is different about the research that you've conducted as compared to some of the research of your colleagues that are here at the conference?
Yeah, this conference are focused on the, we call CCSVI with multiple sclerosis. But in our country, we do not have many patients of multiple sclerosis. But we do have many diseases that probably is related to the artery or vein, we call vascular in origin. But we found there are no artery disease in the patients. So we think there must be the vein involved in the pathogenesis of the neurologic diseases.
Dr. Cook, can you tell us a little bit about your research and what makes it unique and different from some of the other work that's being conducted here?
Well, my interest is the endothelium, which is the lining of the blood vessel. So the endothelium maintains vessel health. It acts like the Teflon lining of blood vessels. So that it keeps blood flow smooth, keeps the vessel dilated, prevents blood elements from sticking to the vessel wall, prevents clot from forming, prevents inflammation when it's healthy. The normal endothelium can respond to changes in hemodynamic conditions and with increases in flow. The endothelium releases vasodilators that relax the blood vessel. That prevent the blood elements from sticking. When the endothelium becomes disturbed, then the homeostasis of the vessel becomes disturbed and you have lesions form, you have blood clots, you have vascular wall thickening, you have inflammation. So what causes the endothelium to become abnormal? One of the causes are abnormal hemodynamic conditions. So reflux, which is seen in CCSVI, abnormal flow, which can occur when you have stenoses in the jugular veins, and increases in pressure, abnormal increases in pressure, can affect the vessel wall and cause the vessel wall to thicken, cause the vessel wall to be more susceptible to inflammation, to clot formation. I was actually very interested in Dr. Hu's work because he has shown us today that reflux, which is an abnormal flow condition, appears to cause or be involved with multiple sclerosis and transient global amnesia and some transient amaurosis fugax and some other conditions that have not been before linked to venous disease, but I think he made a good case that these diseases can be caused by venous abnormalities and abnormal flow. So there's a link between our work.
And can you talk a little bit more about that, the interconnections between what you're both doing and how it will help to further this work?
Yeah, my work is doing the connection between the neurologic disorder and the venous abnormality. But professor's work is explain how the venous abnormality cause diseases with the basic mechanism.
So what
Thank
are
you.
the next steps?
Well, there's a lot of more work to be done. That's the good news. We'll be busy for the rest of our careers doing work in this area. So I personally want to develop an animal model of CCSVI and understand more about the alterations in the blood vessel and how these hemodynamic alterations may in fact predispose somebody to multiple sclerosis. So, for example, multiple sclerosis is thought to be an inflammatory disease. Certainly there are infiltration of immune cells into the brain. I believe that the alterations in flow and pressure cause the endothelium to become more adhesive, to express adhesion molecules and chemokines that allow immune cells to adhere to the vessel and infiltrate into the brain, so that the hemodynamic alterations may predispose to multiple sclerosis. Understanding that would be important.
And Dr. Hu, what would be the next steps for your research?
Next step. Let me think. I think a lot of things to be done. Now I'm very interested in we just say dynamic venous occlusion, because we found some people with during the meditation would cause venous flow abnormality. Probably that would cause, in Chinese we call, maybe in Chinese we call 走火入魔. I don't know how to say in English. Yeah, it would cause some kind of mental problem or some kind of physical illness during the meditation. Yeah, I'm very interested in that part. You want translation?
You know, if I could make a comment on Dr. Hu's work, I thought it was very interesting, the idea that increases in venous pressure, increased venous reflux could cause cerebral hyperperfusion, hypoperfusion, or retinal hypoperfusion, which could cause transient amnesia or amaurosis fugax. These disorders are characterized by transient ischemia, poor blood flow. And why couldn't increase in venular pressure impair perfusion to the eye, impair perfusion to the brain? There's certainly evidence for that in the periphery. Peripheral venous hemodynamic alterations can impair blood flow in the periphery, in the leg, to cause ulceration, for example. So similar thing may be occurring in the eye.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what would that mean if that's the case? I mean, if the research does indeed point in that direction, how does it affect people that are suffering from those diseases and other maladies?
Well, I'll answer for myself, and Dr. Hu can comment, but I think that if we can demonstrate that hemodynamic abnormalities are playing a role in the pathology, then we should correct those hemodynamic abnormalities. But I'm afraid that the clinical care is getting ahead of the science. The clinical care is getting done, and it appears to the benefit of the patients. So in this case, I think the science is a little bit farther behind the clinical work.
Yeah.
But that would be the case in any particularly new avenue of medicine and science, right? I mean, because science requires so much proof of concept and trials, and all of that is so incredibly time-consuming. Would that be unusual that medicine sort of got ahead of the curve?
Well, it's an iterative process. I think we learn from the clinicians, and they inform us, and then the research, goes farther and it informs the clinical care. So I think it is an iterative process, and hopefully we'll improve our understanding of the pathobiology, and we'll improve clinical care as a result.
So why did you both feel it was important to be here at this conference?
I would think it's a new field. There are many, till now, today, still many doctors do not believe there is a CCSVI or venous problem could cause diseases. Yeah, I think through this conference or experts in this field would make people know more about venous part in the pathogenesis of the diseases.
And are you finding that to be the case so far? Are you,
Yeah.
and are you building new collaborations as a result of being here?
Yeah, I think so.
Dr. Cook, would you agree?
I would. I would agree
Go
with
ahead.
you because we've learned a lot from each other today.
Yeah.
I've certainly learned a lot from you today and the others. It's been a great conference, and we have made collaborations and connections, and hopefully that'll lead to more work together and advance the field.
So to go back to a point that you made a bit ago, in terms of the medicine getting ahead of the science, what are the sort of pitfalls that can occur from that, and how do you get the two to be a bit more on the same track with each other?
There are pitfalls. The kinds of interventions that are being done for CCSVI right now have complications associated with them. So there are risks to the interventions. So we want, as a group of physicians and scientists, we would like to see some really strong scientific basis and clinical research that supports the clinical care that is being done. So that's coming. It's been difficult. It's funding issues, collaborations with neurologists, all that can cause an impediment to moving quickly. It has caused an impediment to moving quickly, but hopefully there'll be more collaboration, there'll be some more funding. In fact, I know in Canada there's going to be funding for this now. There's going to be more funding for it in your country, I think you were saying. So I think, hopefully we can get more interest in government sponsorship and maybe device companies to help fund more research in this area.
Does it take longer in the United States and Canada than perhaps in Dr. Who's country to try to advance new ideas and theories like this? Or Dr. Who, would you say that it's equally slow in China?
Yeah, slow.
Slow.
So, in Taiwan.
Is it fear of long-term negative repercussions? I mean, why is there so much hesitation and fear among government leaders and so forth to try to take a leap into funding something like this?
Well, it is controversial, the idea that neck vein occlusions can cause multiple sclerosis and other neurological disorders. So that is controversial. It's an idea that needs to be tested. Any controversial idea in medicine runs up against this kind of resistance, and I would have to say that most of the resistance is motivated by good intentions. So neurologists want to protect their patients. They want to make sure that they're getting the proper care. But they're also wedded to a certain conceptual framework that makes it difficult for them to perhaps accept this controversial new idea and even accept it being tested. So I personally have found it difficult to get funding for the basic science for the CCSVI work. But we'll keep persisting because it does, this is a question that needs to be addressed.
Dr. Hu, what's the most critical takeaway that we really must be sure to include in terms of your work and the future of your work? The most important bit of information.
Sorry, can
Well, what's the one key element you want to be sure that people understand about your research?
like any other country, people with multiple sclerosis want to have the venous depression, but today there's still no randomized trial to convince everybody to do that. It's also the case in our country. We do the angioplasty very, very carefully in highly selected patients because we don't want to hurt patient if this procedure is not beneficial, really beneficial. We do it very, very carefully, slowly but progressively.
Thank you. And Dr. Cook, what is the most critical takeaway that you want to be sure that we reflect in terms of your research or the future of your research?
I've studied the endothelium, the lining of the blood vessel, for 25 years, and what I've learned from my work and others who are working in this area is that it is critical to maintain the health of the endothelium, and that one must correct metabolic perturbations, hemodynamic abnormalities that impair endothelial function, because if the endothelial function is not normal, if the lining of the blood vessel is not normal, you will develop vascular disease.